So in this video we are going to be continuing to take a look at a scenario where civilization starts over. We are now on episode 22 of the series, and in this episode we're going to be covering a war that I set up at the end of the last episode, and that is going to be this war over here, this colonial war, and we're also going to be looking at some other stuff throughout the world. If you do end up enjoying this video, please make sure to like and subscribe, and let's get straight into it. So, I'm not going to waste any time, we're going to be beginning right where we left off in the end of the last episode, and that is going to be this war over here. So, just as a quick recap, the reason this war started is that England and the Pyrenees country, which I'm just going to start calling Pyrenesia because it's a lot more simple, they had signed a deal that England couldn't go past the Mississippi River with colonisation until they reached this northern point over here, where they could only go in a straight line, just like that. England broke this treaty, they went past the Mississippi River. The Pyrenees country was very annoyed about that, and they weren't going to do anything, but then Galicia guaranteed their full support to Pyrenesia, and they could basically do whatever they wanted. It's sort of like a blank check, so they decided that they were going to go to war with England, and that is exactly what we're going to be covering right now. To add to this, I've added territorial waters. I think this looks very cool, and it'll help us a lot with like naval battles and stuff. So anyway, let's get into the war. So, the Pyrenesia had crossed the border, and now they're going to be making some advancements towards major cities. This major city right here, which is pretty much on the border, or on the invaded land border, is going to be taken, and Pyrenesia is then going to attempt to take all of the land over here with this river, also taking this city right here, which is quite important. It's one of the most major cities in this colony. It's probably like the second most populated past like Boston or New York. So, Pyrenesia is going to follow on this river, and the reason that England hasn't really been able to stop Pyrenesia yet is because Pyrenesia had been building up their military for this war, and England kind of hadn't. So that is the reason they're able to be so successful here, even though they are a little bit weaker than England. Their goal is almost completely met as they kind of cut the city off fully, and they begin to siege it. However, then the English will begin supplying this city by sea, and this actually allows a sort of pushback to be made. The troops make a little bit of push around, however they realise the best course of action they could probably make is to just meet up here and kind of break through this line and abandon the city, which would be still bad, but at least then they could rescue the troops. So these forces are going to make many advancements into the front line, and they're going to kind of go around the coast a little bit, but eventually they are going to break through the front, meet up with this river, and cross it. They also encircle some Pyrenean forces in the process, and these guys fall. And then, due to the very bad logistical situation, Pyrenesia is going to be taking this land as the English forces fully retreat. And now, Pyrenesia is going to be launching their full-on advance across the border. They move into this Mississippian land, which is like extremely newly claimed. There's barely anyone living here, and it's very undefended, so it's extremely easy to take. And it's also a pretty good vantage point because after they take this, they can kind of like cross the river into this central area. This goes pretty well until they meet a very large English force on the border of the river, right about here, and a very big battle is going to take place, which the English are actually going to be winning. After this, they kind of cross the river fully, and they begin to push these guys out. They do cut these forces off, however they can literally just flee into this unclaimed land down here, so it really doesn't achieve much. And these forces are going to immediately come back to the front lines and make a massive push north. At this point we also see Galicia start to fund the Pyrenees country, and they're doing it very well. They're keeping it extremely secretive. England has absolutely no idea about this. But now we're actually going to be seeing some naval battles take place. The Pyrenean navy far outclasses the English navy, and that is basically because of their trade. They are way more involved in trade, especially with them being in the Caribbean. So the Pyrenean navy is going to win many battles. Whoops, that was the wrong layer. They're going to win many naval battles, quickly moving up north, and starting to bombard the coast, now going up to this peninsula up here. And this is also going to hurt the supplying of a lot of these troops, especially the ones near the coast. They make a landing on said peninsula right here and take the entire thing. Then they attempt to cross this river over here, however it kind of fails, and they are shortly after pushed back. The Pyreneans are going to move up and around this area, getting very close to New York, which is kind of, it's not the main city, however it is the most populated. The main city where this colony is run is from Boston. So these forces are then going to take this city over here as well. And like I've just said, they are going to be advancing a little bit more towards New York. These two forces are then going to decide to meet up. However, it's kind of stopped based on an issue which I have just said. These Pyrenean forces down here can't really cross the river. So these guys will make an advancement. They also kind of go down this river a little bit because why not? This does make some bad logistical situations for the English, which is kind of what they were hoping for. And the English, faced with a bit of a struggling situation here, are going to be forced to retreat, just like this. And this city over here, I'm not going to lie, this city has basically been completely destroyed. It's on the coast, and this is like the main one that they're bombarding. The English will win a pretty notable naval battle right here on the coast, and this does allow them to make a little bit of pushback. However, it really doesn't last long, as then Galicia starts supplying Pyrenesia with a lot of ships, and this allows them to continue their onslaught. They are now getting extremely close to the waters surrounding New York and Long Island. However, in the main area, the English forces are now fully mobilised and they are ready to make a pushback. They plan a kind of three-way offensive. First offensive is to move in from this river. This will hurt a lot of supply lines for this area over here and maybe even encircle all of these forces. After that, they plan to move these forces down into the main area of Florida. And their third offensive is to kind of move down from New York, kind of across the coast, but not like on the coast. And this will hopefully lead into all of this area falling. But yeah, that is the main plan of the English. The first offensive we see taking place is the English pushing back down. They retake this land over here, and they get very close to this city. In fact, they begin to siege it. They also make a push down over here, and their offensive down this river begins. And they actually see quite a lot of success. They surprisingly managed to take this city, which had been decently fortified, especially since it is near the English border, and they do continue on down this river. This is going to go exactly how they thought it would, and allows all of this land to fall over to England, going down to the base of this river. However, it's not going all well for the English, as the Pyreneans launch a massive assault on the border. And a very good thing about this assault is it meets up with this river. This is an extremely convenient river, as it's like exactly where they need it to be. Big natural barrier on the front line that they're fighting on. And this is going to allow a absolutely massive amount of Pyrenean forces to be freed up. They have a very big strike force on this border right here, ready to go for New York and Boston, like I've just said. And the rest of these troops are going to be crossing this river down here. So these Pyrenean forces are going to make a very big assault. And this is now not looking very good for England at all. We also see Galicia at this point continue to ramp up their supplying of Pyrenesia. This Mississippian land is then going to fall, which is something they weren't able to do before. At this point, the English are like, ruh-oh, but they're going to continue fighting anyway because they really hope that they can squeeze out a W. They're still confused of how Pyrenesia is doing well. Of course, we know, but they don't. As well as this, a very big win. The Pyreneans managed to take the waters around Long Island, and as well as Massachusetts/Boston. And the final nail in the coffin, this encirclement over here is complete, just as they had planned. And all of these forces are kind of squeezed out, forced to go over here to this area, and I guess flee into Canada, and a defensive line will be held on this river. After this, the Pyreneans are basically just free to walk into New England. They smash right through the front lines, take Long Island, and shortly after Boston, and the King of England, who is probably in London, although since there has been a lot of stuff going on here recently, which I haven't talked about at all, he is probably somewhere in this colony. So he is going to be going over to Florida, and he's going to be signing a deal with the King of Pyrenesia. So let's go ahead and take a look at this peace treaty. So in this peace treaty, we can see that Pyrenesia hasn't actually been very harsh on England. They take a pretty big and important chunk of the English colony. England also has to pay for war reparations, and something actually quite surprising, the English are allowed to keep this Mississippian land. And you might be thinking, well, why? And that is because if we take a look at the religion map, it's not updated, but the religion of the Mississippian area has now been kind of fully cemented as this purple religion, and these peoples would definitely not be happy being not only under a country that England has just fought a war against, but under a different religion as well. So what Pyrenesia does instead is they kind of redo the treaty, but being a little bit less harsh. They kind of understand they were being a little bit greedy in the first treaty. So the new treaty is that this river over here has to be followed, So England can now claim any of this land. And England is, well, they're not exactly happy about this because they have just technically lost this war. But England is, I don't know what you'd say, but they're kind of glad that now they can claim a bit more land. So this war wasn't completely useless for them. But yeah, that is going to be it for this war. And I hope that was an interesting war. I hope it wasn't just completely boring. But anyway, now we're going to be taking a look at some other things going on throughout the world. And first up, we're going to be going over to Africa because a new event is going to be taking place. So a lot of people in these North African countries are kind of disappointed with their nations. Of course, you're never going to have 100% support from your population in your country. So what is going to be happening is a lot of people who aren't happy with their current countries are going to be moving down and they're going to be forming a new country. And that is going to be in this sub-Saharan region over here. So these people are going to be exploring around and kind of just going away from all of these rivers right here. Now, it is sandy here. It's kind of like savanna-y in some areas, especially in the sub-Saharan area. And these people are actually going to be forming a new country here. This had been a suggestion that I had seen, but I'm actually going to be making it here now. So let's go ahead and take a look at this country. So this country is going to be setting themselves up right here. And this is a pretty far away location. However, I guess the founder of this country, he is an extremely rich person. He was able to finance this. He is one of the richest people in the world. So he is able to kind of easily set this country up as a semi-prosperous nation. They, of course, completely rely on trade, mostly from these European nations as well. But yeah, that is going to be what we see happening. Now we're going to be continuing on Africa because some of these African nations are actually going to be expanding. We do see also a little bit more exploration take place over here, especially in this like Upper Nile area. I don't know if that's what it's called, but that's what I'm going to be calling it. So let's go ahead and see what these countries take. So Somalia is going to be taking this land right here. They become quite big from this. The Sudanese, which haven't really done anything in a while, are going to be taking this land right here. Egypt is going to be taking nothing. They don't really see any point in taking this land right here. It's very invaluable. The Libyans are going to be taking this land right here. Not too much, but it's sort of noticeable on the map. Carthage is going to be taking quite a large amount of land. However, they're only really taking it for the sake of, expanding their nation. And finally, Morocco, they are going to take just a little bit of land right here. Also, I would say the Cape country, they're also going to take a bit of land. They're probably going to follow this river. Actually, it's probably going to look something more like that. But anyway, yeah. So that is going to be our expansion for today, I think. I think that's going to be all we're seeing in Africa. But now we're going to be moving over to Europe, because a pretty interesting and, I guess, small event is going to be happening. This English colony right here, which they have had since episode 19, since the 7 Years' War. This is kind of their war spoils from the Dutch. The population of this colony doesn't want to be English anymore. They either want to be Dutch or French, and you might be thinking, well, why would they want to be French at all? And that's because some of these southern provinces have more of a French identity, and especially this city right here. A lot of French people have actually migrated there. Now the majority of people living in that city are French. So let's go ahead and take a look and see how this land is divided, because the Dutch aren't going to be getting all of this. France is going to be getting some of it. So this treaty is going to be looking something like this. The Dutch get a few northern provinces and the French get a few southern provinces, and we see this city becoming an exclave of France up here. As I had said, these people are mostly French, so that is why they are going to be getting that. But now we're actually going to be seeing a war taking place, and that is going to be over here, and that is between... But now we're actually going to be taking a look at a war, and it's going to be over here in Persia. So, these two Persian states, this blue one and this brownish one, they had been in talks of forming a union between each other, and it had been going pretty well. They're the same religion, so it kind of makes sense for them. However, as we can see, this brown country is a dictatorship, and right before the unification was supposed to take place, the dictator had actually died. He had been assassinated, and a new dictator is going to be coming into power who doesn't want to unite with Persia, so he is going to be ripping up the unification papers. And, well, Persia had already put a lot of money into this country because they thought they were going to be uniting, and they're like, no, that's not going to be happening. So, instead of letting these guys have their independence, Persia is just going to be invading them. So, Persia will cross the border. These Persian forces are very well trained. Most of these Persian forces are actually Mesopotamian mercenaries. These people speak the same language, so it's not like bad for that to happen. Persia is fairly rich, especially because if we look at the trade routes layer, they have full control over this trade route all the way up here to the border of this mint country where India has control of it. And this trade route up here isn't used, so if you want to go from Europe to Asia, you pretty much have to go through this trade route, and this is giving a lot of these countries loads of money. So that is going to be helping Persia finance this war. Persia is going to storm right into this country. This country is going to be making a little bit of pushback in the north, taking this city. However, Persia is going to be blasting them right back. Then Baikal is going to be doing a funny, and they're going to be launching an invasion in. And let's just say, the people that live here, they aren't going to exist for much longer. Yeah, so a lot of people are running away, literally running away. The Baikal troops are literally like chasing civilians, so that's not great. Luckily though, or I don't know how you would say it, but the capital of this country is going to be captured by Persia, and the Persians will fall. And let's go ahead and take a look at this peace treaty. So in this peace treaty here, we can see that this northern Persian country has been completely divided up. Persia is going to be getting a majority of this land, and Baikal will be getting the northern areas that they had invaded. I also gave a province to this yellow country over here because it looked absolutely horrendous on the map, so I just gave them that. We'll just assume that in the very last days of the war they also launched an invasion of that Persian country. Doesn't seem too unrealistic. So that is going to be the peace treaty we see there. Now we've got to talk about something going on up here in Siberia. So this blue country right here, they are an interesting country, and they basically don't know what to do with themselves. They just invaded this red country, and if we look at the religion map, because there's some stuff we need to update. Oh, that's not great. They aren't killing these people, they're just forcing them over here to these other blue religious countries or any other religion that would accept them. So maybe like the green religion or the red religion. Definitely not send them over here. But like I was saying, these guys. So these guys are actually going to be deciding, hey, there is loads of animals we can get fur of up here in Siberia, and no one else is really going for this land. The Russians kind of have. They're really going in on these rivers up here, like especially this one right here. There's a bunch of fur animals here, but these guys are going to be doing something different. These guys are actually going to be expanding into this land. They make a deal with Russia, basically, for the division of that land. And that is basically, Russia can claim anything up to this river. Where have we heard this before? And the blue country can claim anything past it. They're going to expand just a little bit, and then they kind of meet up with unexplored land. So they're going to be going up, and they're going to be exploring some more. And don't worry, this border isn't going to stay the same for long. I hate it as well. They're going to meet up all the way here with the sea and this peninsula, which I don't know the name of, but I probably should. They're going to be exploring all of this land right here, and even going into some other parts of Siberia right here. And yeah, they end up exploring a very large amount of Siberia, and then after that they are going to be colonizing some of it. So they are going to be taking an extremely large amount of this land. Let's be honest though, this land, there's no one living up here, they're just claiming it. And the reason it's kind of like a weird shape. Basically what is happening is they want to make sure that this land up here is secured for the future. So what they're actually doing is they're taking this land down here, and then they are making a claim of this land and this land. And that allows this area to be secure for them to colonize in the future. So that is what we're going to be seeing there. The next up, we are going to be seeing our Daily Japan update. So this Daily Japan update is going to be pretty simple. Tokyo, which as I had said, they had been putting their troops on the border of this green country, are going to be launching an invasion. And the light purple country had also heard word of this, and they will also be invading, taking the capital city, and this country is going to be split looking something like this. Pretty simple peace treaty, it's just going to be looking something like this. But now we're going to be looking at, well actually, there's one thing else I want to do before I look at the final event. That's going to be some colonization. So after doing a little bit more exploration, it's now getting extremely hard to explore this land over here because it's really jungle. Some Galician explorers are going to be going down and they're actually going to be discovering China. They knew China they didn't know China was in the Americas. They knew Indonesia was in the Americas. So at first they think these guys are Indonesians, and they're like, hang on a minute, these guys aren't Indonesians. Who are you? And they say, we're Chinese. Well, they probably have an interpreter because they don't speak the same language. But anyway, to the point, these guys now know that each other exist. The Chinese then say, oh, you know, Indonesia is like right above us, and Galicia is like, really? So they're going to send out some explorers along the coast, and they're like, oh wow, yeah, Indonesia is right here. They had no idea that they were this close, and I'm going to finally colour in this massive black blob. We also see, well, the Rockies are still undiscovered, but people like kind of go through them, so I'm just going to be colouring it as explored. At this point, we'd probably also see like Hawaii be discovered, and this is like very good for Indonesia, as it's kind of like a pit stop location. So instead of having to make the voyage from their mainland all the way to the Americas, they can now have a nice little colony on Hawaii right here. But now we're going to be seeing how this land is divided up. The French are going to be taking this land right here. The USB is going to be expanding southwards just a little bit. Galicia, who is looking at this as a great trading opportunity, is going to be expanding down to connect up with this Chinese colony, who is then going to be connecting up with them, and a trade route is going to be shortly constructed to allow trade through these countries. Who would have thought? Also, the Chinese are going to take the Galapagos. Indonesia is going to be taking Baja California and this island right here, as well as this island. Galicia is then going to expand their colony up north to meet up with the Indonesians. Pyrenesia is going to be taking this land right here. The English are going to be actually following the treaty this time, because they don't want to get blasted in another war again. They're going to be meeting up with this river, and then kind of just expanding along a little bit. And they're going to be connecting up their colony, just like this. The Irish aren't going to be doing anything, and that is actually because where they want to go is over here. But unfortunately for them, the Swedish are going to beat them to it, and the Swedish are actually going to be setting up their first like mainland American colony right here on the Hudson Bay, and this is of course going to be fur trading, as a lot of beavers and stuff are there. So yeah, that is our, I guess, colonization update for today. But now, like I've just said, we are going to be taking a look at the final event of this video. Also, I've decided I'm actually going to be giving this land to them. If I'm going to give this land to them for being their claim, I may as well do it for this land as well, because it just looks very weird on the map if they don't have it. But anyway, finally getting onto it, we're going to be looking at the final event of this video. Also, I hope this video isn't too long. I've been recording for half an hour now. But that is actually going to be over here in Korea. Now, something interesting about Korea, they aren't exactly the most stable country. This is something I don't think I've mentioned before, but they are quite unstable. They are also a dictatorship. And similar to what happened over here with Hokkaido, where the king died, over here the dictator is going to die. And there is two people that were the dictator's top generals. The first one is extremely popular, and it's looking like he is going to be like the main ruler. And the other one is one that doesn't really have any support except for some of these northern provinces up here. But this guy up here, he is going to be, well, he's obviously not going to be happy that he's not going to become the new dictator. So what he's going to do is he's going to amass a pretty big army, and he is going to be marching down to the capital of Korea. And when he gets there, the other guy, who is the popular guy, he knew about this, and he had his army ready as well. And a massive battle is going to be taking place at the capital of Korea. If you guys want to have a name for the battle, then go for it. I'd probably be the capital of Pyongyang or something. But it's going to end in like a draw, I guess. And the guy who is popular up here, he is going to flee back to his area. And now knowing that he is definitely going to be killed or assassinated because of this, he is going to be rallying these northern provinces up to declare independence from Korea. So he is going to be staging an extremely large rebellion in his areas. The capital of this rebellion, it would probably be here, but I imagine he'd put it here because it's in a more secure location. But yeah, these are the provinces that he's going to be rallying up to declare independence. The dictator, which has now fully been installed into Korea, is going to be really cocky. He's going to be like, oh yeah, this is going to be so easy. So he's going to go up and he's going to launch a battle. and he's gonna immediately die. These guys up here have a pretty new invention, the sniper. It's like not exactly how you wouldn't really call it a sniper. It's like I don't know if anything like this existed in real life, but it's like a very fast shooting musket, and it has a sight on it. And so he dies, and the army is like, right, so what now? And the guy up here, he's gonna be like, okay, right, so we've just killed your king or dictator, and we have this powerful weapon which we're not going to reveal. They don't know what the weapon is. Obviously, we know it's a sniper, but they don't know what it is. So these guys are going to be like, okay, just give us independence and we'll leave you alone. And Korea, who is kind of a bit like in chaos at the minute because there's no really other capable person to be the dictator or a an easy choice to be dictator, they are going to be reluctantly accepting the independence of this nation. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So these guys are going to be declaring their independence and looking at their ideologies layer. These guys are going to be an absolute monarchy, and the reason for this is the dictator, he has just learned a lesson from what happened to Korea, and he is like, okay, maybe we should just establish a line of succession. But that is actually going to be it for this video. I really hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. And a big thank you to all of our channel superfans. This includes Laser Taste and English Mapper, as well as our channel members, Chiltern Mapping, Swiss Switzerland, Coley, and another thank you to our recent donators, Chiltern Mapping. Thank you guys.